I spent half the last week trying to figure out how to do this. I didn't place the rings after crochet, I crocheted them in place. And I'm going to show you how because you have spoken.
Played around with adding rings afterwards, but the rings get caught on the yarn and look really messy in the end.
And then I thought, my precious.
So I forked around and found out there's a method that's easy to do and very secure. I figured out a number of variations and also tried it in the round, but if you get your gauge exactly right, you can add rings to make 4-in-1 chainmail.
Full disclosure, I am not an expert crocheter. I'm a cosplayer and leatherworker who's really into designing everyday cosplay accessories. My crochet experience basically consists of a hyperfixation month making little guys.
Apologies in advance if I use any incorrect terminology.
Let's get into it.
You're going to need 2 needle nose jewelry pliers, the smooth kind, a crochet hook. I tried 3.5 to 5 millimeters. They all work. Chainmail rings. I'll link to the exact rings I used down below, but this would probably work with any rings that are a similar size. Of course, yarn. I'm using medium weight acrylic yarn.
Wool is a sensory no for me, dog.
Basics. Chainmail rings arrive neither fully open or fully closed, so the first thing you need to do is close a whole bunch of rings. So this is a basic unit of crochet mail. It consists of 3 stitches in one row and 1 stitch in the following row. You add the ring as you crochet along the front side, and you crochet back into the same ring as you stitch along the wrong side. Here's a real life example. So every row of rings is actually 2 rows of crochet.
It's gonna make sense in a minute, I promise.
You should be comfortable with single crochet before we begin. Let's make a swatch 9 stitches wide to practice. Crochet a couple rows of 9 to give yourself something to hold on to while you learn, and meet me back here to learn how to add rings. Remember to always chain 1 at the end of every row when flipping. I'm going to show you a graphic first. Stitch 1, you add the ring. Stitch 2 is entirely inside the ring. Stitch 3, you exit the ring. Now let's do it in real life. Stitch 1, pop a ring over your crochet hook and crochet a stitch as normal. It's going to look like this. Here's what it looks like after completing the first stitch. Stitch 2, you're going to keep your hook inside the ring the entire time you do this stitch. After completing the stitch, pop your hook back outside the ring so it looks like this. Stitch 3, complete the entire stitch outside of the ring. Now it should look like this. You can see stitch 1 going into the ring, stitch 2 entirely inside the ring, and stitch 3 exiting the ring. Let's repeat that for the rest of the row. It should now look like this. Chain 1 and flip. On the wrong side, we're going to crochet through each ring 1 time right in the center of the ring. All of the other stitches are entirely outside of the rings. Complete the row, and boom, you've now added a row of rings. On the next row, you can add rings again. After 4 rows of crochet and 2 ring rows, you'll have this. Let's get into some variations.
Before we do, if you're new here, my name's Owen. I'm a leatherworker, maker, and cosplayer. Follow for nerdy shenanigans.
You can also do everything I just taught you crocheting front loop only. This swatch is both loops on the front side and front loop only on the back side. This also works with double crochet. The only thing you really need to know is that you have to yarn over before popping the ring on. Everything else is the same. This method is more confusing, and I don't really like the way it looks, but you do you, boo. This swatch is double crochet front and back. This swatch is double crochet on the front and single on the back. To make the rings even tighter together, You can add your second ring at the same time you're exiting the first ring. Stitch 3 of ring 1 is stitch 1 of ring 2. Let's practice it. Pop a ring on and stitch the first 2 stitches. Instead of completing stitch 3, immediately pop another ring on and stitch as normal. It's going to look like this. The wrong side is going to work the same. You're going to go through each ring once and all of the other stitches are outside of the rings. To create a staggered look, simply add an extra stitch at the beginning of every other row of rings. That's how I did my neck warmer. And while we're on the subject, my neck warmer is just a giant rectangle that I stitched together at the end. I used rows of 93 stitches, enough to go around my head. I also played around with adding rings in the round, but it gets really tricky trying to evenly space them because you're constantly increasing the number of stitches. I'm still playing around to see if there's a method to the madness because the math made me want to yeet myself into the sun. After adding a row of rings, you're going to avoid going through the rings entirely on the following row. The rings are also less secure because you aren't doing that single wrong side stitch that holds everything in place, and they also show through more on the wrong side. But I still feel like this has so much potential once we come up with a pattern. And finally, let's get into the variation that everyone is the most excited about, but be forewarned, it's also the most annoying. Having practice making chainmail would really help you out here, but it isn't essential. After crocheting a whole piece with tightly spaced rings, you add rings on at the end to create 4-in-1 chainmail. If you've never made 4-in-1, it looks like this. A basic unit of chainmail is 4 rings that are joined through one central ring. The first thing you need to do is open up a whole bunch of rings. Then you're going to start at the top row and work your way down. You're going to insert a ring down the right side and then up the left side. And then you're going to close the ring. You're going to go ahead and repeat that step for every set of 4 rings. The tricky thing about this method is that the crocheted rings need to be spaced precisely in order for the final ring to fit properly. I tried out 4 different hook sizes and finally settled on 3.5mm as the best for this for me, but you need to crochet your own test swatch because there's so many variables involved in tightness. 2,000 years later, you will have this. At the moment, the issue I have with this is that the bottom row faces up at an angle, which just disturbs my walk. I've considered rolling the edge and stitching it down, or maybe adding some additional rings along the edges. I have a big list of things that I still want to experiment with.
But for now, be free, make things. Please tag me in your projects because I'm so excited to see what you guys make with this. Follow for nerdy shenanigans.